Hello everybody, this is Rosemary. I'm standing here in my sewing room. As you can see, it's a lot of mixture of a lot of different kinds of crafts. I find myself doing everything from dolls to quilts to clothing. I know a lot of you can relate. Your sewing rooms looks like this. I've seen a lot of stuff online lately with these perfectly beautifully organized sewing rooms, and that's not me. So anyway, I wanted to show you my new sewing machine that I just bought. It's a Brother embroidery only machine. And one of the reasons why I got the machine is because I do the embroidered doll faces on it, and I want to be able to do a lot more of that. But I also like to do a lot of applique. And one of the great things about this sewing machine is you can create your own applique on the screen of the sewing machine in the design center, and then bring it directly from there into the embroidery part and embroider it out. I just finished making these little witch's legs, and my intention is to use these as the letter L in the word Halloween. I want to do a few more appliques. Perhaps maybe put a cauldron in there and a pumpkin to replace the O and the A, and who knows where I'll go from there. I'm just going to try a lot of different things, and then when I'm all done, we'll put it into a table runner, and then I'll show you how you can actually do your quilting in the hoop with the design center, creating the stitches, but not embroidering over our applique, just filling in the spaces in between. It's really cool, and you can do it with your Brother embroidery machine if you have a stellaire, a luminaire, or a dream machine. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I guess that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm sitting in front of my stellaire sewing machine, and I'm getting ready to go into design center. And before we do anything else, I have to tell you that I'm a lefty. So I have a bad habit of putting my hand in here. I'm going to try and do this and point out things to you as easily as I can, but forgive me if I get my hand in the way a little bit when I'm trying to show you how to do this. So we're going to go into my design center to create our embroidery. And there's a couple different ways I can bring an image in. We can do it through the app, which I will show you how to do at a future date. But right now, I just want to bring an image in that I can trace. And what I've done is I've gone on the internet and looked for an image that I can trace. And all I really did was Google witches, shoes, clip art, and I found a picture. So to bring that picture in, I have to pick from up here on top. See, I've got 3 different places that I can bring in a drawing from. You do not want to use these 2, because what these 2 do is they bring in your image and they try and turn it into an embroidery, which we're not really doing. We're just using this as a template to trace around. So I'm going to hit this one. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit that I'm coming from my USB port, and shoes is the name of my design. And there it is. And I'm going to set it down. And this picture is a little bigger than what I want, because what I want to eventually do is turn the witch's shoes into L's in the word Halloween for my applique. So I'm going to have to size it first before I bring it over there and set it down in embroidery. Before I even start to make the shoe, I want to do the legs, because in order to make this an L, and yes, it's backwards, but I can flip that over. In order to make this into an L, I have to give her some leg, and I'm going to use striped fabric. So just a rectangle will do just fine. I've got a couple of different shapes in here. You can see this machine comes equipped with a lot of different shapes. And a square, I'm going to say, okay. There's my square, and as long as it's still selected, I can hit size and hit this. Put my hand up here so it's out of the way. Make it probably about this big, and then make it come out like this big. That's about what I'm looking for. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to say, okay. And then I want to make sure that this is making just a running stitch. So I'm going to hit this, and you can see that it's telling me it wants to make it into a zigzag. I want to make it into a running stitch, and I want to make it a different color. Let's make it a bright green so I know exactly what it is, and say okay, and pour, and then I can just tap it with my finger and it turned green, and that should be a running stitch. before I set this down in my embroidery part as my tack down stitch, I want to save it because I want to draw 2 more of them exactly the same size to make it into an applique. So make sure you put save. The arrow going in the pocket is going to save it. I'm going to save it in my sewing machine. And then now that I've created this, I want to make it a little bit smaller. Well, yeah, let's make it smaller right now. I should have probably done it before I sized it. In order to size this, you can see that it's not selected, so it's not going to let me do anything with it, and the size thing is grayed out. So I'm going to hit this box, and I'm going to draw a box around it like this. And then I'm going to size it, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So let's... And see how it's telling me the size right here, so I know about how big it is. Let's make it as close to 3 as I can possibly get it. Three. That's good, because that way I'll remember what size it is. So I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to save that again. And now I'm going to push next, and I'm going to hit, and it's telling me right here that I have a running stitch. I'm going to hit preview, and then I'm going to set it down. And it's telling me it's turning it into an embroidery, and that's okay with me. That's what I want to do. And there it is sitting right there. So if I hit add, I can go back into my design center again. Here's the pocket coming out. I'm going to hit that, and it's hidden in my sewing machine, and this is the one I just made. So I'm going to hit that and set it down, and there it is again. Now I want to make a second one, because one is going to be the place to lay the fabric. The second one is going to be the tack down stitch, and I'm going to change the running stitch to this one. This is like a 3-part stitch, which is going to sew it down well enough that I can get my scissors really close to it to cut it out. And I'm going to change that to a different color. Doesn't really matter which color it is. And say okay, hit pour and tap it, and then push next and preview and say okay. And I'm sorry. Let's say set down. Now you see I've got a green and a blue, even though it looks like there's only one. There's one right on top of the other one. So now I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to go back into Design Center again, and I'm going to go back into the memory again, and here's my sewing machine, and there's that same box. Set it down, but this time I'm going to put a satin stitch around it to make it into an applique. So we're going to hit this. We're going to hit zigzag stitch, and we're going to make this the color that the stocking's going to be, which is purple. So there's purple, and say okay, hit pour and tap, and there's the third one. Now when I hit next, it's telling me I have a zigzag stitch in there, but it's only 0.80, which is not wide enough for an applique. I want it wider than that. So I'm going to hit this, and I think I'm going to make it about 160 and set it down. And then I'm going to hit preview and hope that I did it right. There's a good satin stitch around that. Push set. Okay. And there's my applique for my sock. So that's just the first step. Now we're going to start doing our shoe. So let's push add. Okay, so here we are in Design Center, and I'm going to bring that image back up in here again. So I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to hit this, and there's my shoes, and push set. So there's my shoe, and I'm going to trace around it. I want to keep this pretty simple because it's really just going to be part of my letters and the word Halloween. I don't want to put too much complication in it, but I also want it to look like a witch's shoe. So in order to trace this, I'm going to use that same tool I talked about just a minute ago, this one right here, because that way I don't have to feel like I got to keep going straight. And to be completely honest with you, I have a tendency to get a little wobbly when I'm trying to go completely straight. I'm going to use this tool, And I'm going to pick that same green color to do the tracing. So let's go for this. Let's see how well I can do this without blocking the screen. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to draw a straight line and stop. And the reason why I keep stopping is because I'm trying to make it curve. If you mess up, just push this back button and you can start again. And another thing you can do is see right here where it says plus. Now I'm closer. I can see a little bit better what I'm trying to do. Move the box. Come across. Let's go back up. See if I can't make this look like a real shoe. Bring up here. Yep, that's closed. That looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom out, minus, and I'm going to make sure that I have a running stitch chosen and say okay. And I'm going to save it. I don't want to make that mistake again. So here, let's save it in here. Put it right here in the sewing machine so it's saved. And now I'm going to hit next. And that's what I was going for. It's just like a little shape of a shoe. But you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to size it down a little bit because it's a little big. So it's not selected anymore. So let's hit the box and select it and hit size. And let's bring it down by holding it. I want to bring it down to about eight inches. That's about the size I want it to be. I don't want it to be too big. And say okay, and then I'm going to save it in the sewing machine. And then we're going to push next, and then preview, and then set, and it's okay. We saved it. So there's my shoe. Hey, that's not bad. I like the way that looks. Let's say okay and flip it. There. So there's my applique all together. Now I'm going to add to this. I'm going to say add. And I'm going to go back into my design center. And I'm going to take that shoe out of the pocket, which is here. Should be the last thing I saved. That one right there. And set it down. And now I'm going to go into the pour. Hit this. Change it to this one. Make it blue, say okay, and tap that so it's blue. Push next, preview, okay, and set that down. And edit, mirror image. Then all I have to do is just kind of set it right on top. If I hadn't moved it, I probably wouldn't even have to worry about making sure they're on top of each other, but I wanted to mirror image it and move it over here. So there's that one. So I'm going to say okay and add. Go back into my design center. Now before I add the satin stitch, which is the last part I want to do, I want to add a decorative stitch down the front of it. And to do that, I need the picture again. So I'm going to hit this and go in here, and there's my shoe, and set that down. And I want to draw this part right here. And I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use the stars. The stars are kind of like little candle wicking bumps, so I really like that one for a decorative stitch. I want to make it green, and then I'm going to say okay. And instead of using this tool, I'm going to use this tool. This tool is kind of like a loose tool that you can go anywhere you want with. It's the one I didn't want to use before because, like I said, my hand can get kind of wobbly, but we're just going to do a real quick little straight line. So that one should be okay. And now I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to draw this straight down like this. And if it doesn't come out the way I want it, I can just hit back and try again. Let's push plus so I can see a little bit better and try this. We're going to go straight. I don't care whether it's perfect. I just want to get it so that it's in the shoe like that. And then I'm going to hit next. And it says that I did it with the stars, but no, I'm going to size it when I get over there to the embroidery part. So we're going to hit preview, say okay. There's my stars. I'm going to push set and okay. Here they are. So let's push edit, mirror image, bring that down. Obviously, it's way too big. But if you size something in the embroidery part instead of design center, if you hit this part right here, it will let you size it up to 100%. So I can go down and put that in there. Just like that. That looks pretty good. I like that. So now I'm going to put my satin stitches on there. So I'm going to say okay and add. Go back into my design center. I know we're doing this a whole lot, but step by step we're going to make an applique. I'm going to take out of the pocket this shoe, push set, and then I'm going to add my satin stitching to it. So I'm going to hit here, go into satin stitch. This is a black shoe, so black is good. And I'm going to hit pour and tap it, push next. Now I want to make my satin stitching a little wider like we did before when we did the sock. So let's make it 160 and set that down and push preview. Okay. That looks pretty good. That's kind of what I was going for. So I want to push set, okay. And we have to edit and flip it and bring it down here till it's right on top of there. That's where I want it to be. And if I want to kind of see it a little closer, I can hit this and hit plus. And I can see that I've got all my stitching from before covered up. This part doesn't matter because the fabric's going to cover that. So it doesn't matter that overlaps like that. So, okay. And that's most of my shoe, but what am I missing? I'd like some little shoelaces in here. So I'm going to push add one more time. And we're going to go back into my design center. We're going to bring that image back in again. Set. And to draw the shoelaces, I could do straight lines. Actually, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do is I'm going to do straight lines. So I'm going to come in here. I want to make sure I got satin stitch picked and let's do green. I like green shoelaces. And I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to draw them like this. 1, 2, 3. You know, I don't like those. Let's go back and use this one. That's going to make a really straight line, and that's probably what I want. So let's do that again. Let's zoom in. There's 1, 2, 3. Those look pretty good. Next. Now I want to see all of those lines together, and that's just showing me one. And if I change the width on just that one, I'll be here all day. So see the little chain right here? If I hit that, there's all of them right there. So let's change the width on all of those. Set that down and hit preview. Okay, and then we're going to set that down, say okay, edit, flip them over, and size. Remember, hit this part here so it'll let us size more than just 20%, and go down. There it is, right there. Well, let's move them over. They're too far over. Move this one over too. Okay, we've got a witch's shoe. We've actually created that, and it looks pretty good. And I think it's going to pull off the whole L thing really well. So I'm going to say okay. And embroidery. We're ready to embroider this. We'll do one shoe, and then we'll move it over, and then we'll do another shoe. And before I even start to hoop this up, I'm going to save this in my memory so that I have it as an embroidery design, so I don't have to do that all over again. So just give me a few minutes to get some fabric in the hoop, and I will show you how to sew out an applique. So what I've done is I've put a piece of orange fabric in my hoop. I am going to make this into either a table runner or a bench pillow. I haven't really decided yet. So I just cut a big piece of fabric, about a ½ yard wide and 55 inches long. Those of you who are really accurate quilters, I will probably drive you crazy because I kind of fly by the seat of my pants just to see what will happen. I just cut some fabric and put it in the hoop, and I'm going to go from there and see what we're going to end up creating. And so let's get started. Oh, before we do this, I told you I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. We're going to have to use a couple of different colors to do that. I have picked this stripe fabric to do my witch's sock, and I'm going to put black felt as the shoe. And I also need a really good sharp pair of applique scissors and then some different colored embroidery threads. I've got black for the shoe and purple for the sock, and I think I might use orange when I get to do the candle wicking that's on there. So let's see how it goes. So here's my threads and my fabric, and I'm going to thread her up. I call my machine Stella. That's her name. So Stella's all threaded up. I'm going to hold the thread like this, put the foot down, and push go. And that first one that we created is just a running stitch. Okay, so now we're going to put the sock fabric down. Just make sure that it covers all of that running stitch If you're using a scrap like I am, make sure that there isn't a cut right there. And then push this down, and let's do that a second time. This time we use the stitch that has kind of like a back and forth motion. So see, it's doing a bean stitch is what it's doing. And that should make it nice and strong. But I want you to get the idea of exactly how you do this, especially when you've purchased a design that's an applique and you're like, I don't understand how that works. Now you'll know exactly how it works. So I've sewn that piece down. I'm going to use my applique scissors, and I'm going to cut till I get to this. And then I'm going to pull my fabric back and cut that off. And cut this off. And then cut this off. And I need to move my hoop forward so I can get to this part right here. Okay, this is a little bit jagged. Let's try and get as much of that off as we possibly can. Okay, make sure you put the hoop back on again and lock it in place. I've got the thread going to the back, and just go. Okay, so let's do the second part, which is the witch's shoe. So I'm going to take this thread out, and even though it says it's green, it's not green. And that's just our applique color. So don't ever take for granted that it's the color that you put in there. So I'm just going to use black for all three settings. Let's let it sew out the shape of the shoe. Okay, let's put the black felt down. I want to make sure that I have enough. You know what? I think I'm going to move it over here. So that way I know I have enough for my other shoe. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of work to get this trimmed off, so I'm going to do it off camera and I'll bring it right back in just a minute. Okay, so I got that all trimmed off. You can see it's ready to go, and I've threaded the machine with a really bright yellow that I decided I liked instead of the green that I had put in the design. So now I'm going to push start, and you can see that go. Okay, so now we're ready for the black outline that's on the shoe. So we're going to put that down and we're going to do the black outline. Okay, so the last part that we want to do is put the shoelaces on there. And I'm going to take a gamble and I'm going to use this thread. And anytime you use any of these metallic or foil threads, you're taking a gamble. So we're going to see how it works. I put a thread stand on the back of my machine, which you probably can't see. And that will make the thread come up straight off the spool instead of twisting off from the side. I'm already having trouble threading this. And you can see that sometimes the needle threader doesn't cooperate really good with these threads either. Okay, everybody keep your fingers crossed. Let's see how it goes. I'm going to stop it. I'll break that thread. Okay, for the most part, we only had one little mishap with the thread where it broke one time here, but for the most part, It looks really good. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to do the other shoe off camera, and then the next time we come back, I will show you how to create the rest of the word Halloween by making some more appliques. See you later.